Hello, in today's video we're going to be going through some of my favourite warm-up activities that you can deliver with primary school age children from 4 to 11 years old. We're going to be talking about the considerations that we need to make, how do we make it fun, how do we make it safe, and how do we make it educational. So let's get into it. Now, warm-ups are a really important part to any PE lesson that you teach. It's a chance to get the children mentally ready for the lesson, but also physically ready as well. Now, for me, I think there's lots of benefits when it comes to delivering warm-up games. Now, one of them is it can be a refresh from last week's activities. You could try and bring some of the skills and activities that you were doing from last week's lesson and bring it into the warm-up. The next one is that it gets the children moving, gets their body ready for the activity, and if you can, you'll make your warm-up specific to the lesson that you're actually going to teach on that day. And also, it's a great way to encourage learning later on because it's a nice little movement break, which is going to get that blood moving, get their brain ready to start learning, and it's a nice way for you to then move into your learning and educational aspects as you go into your first section of your lesson. Now, there are some considerations that we need to make when it comes to warm-up games. The first one, is it fun? The second one, is it safe? And the third one, is it educational? If you can hit all three of those, you're on to a winner. Now, a few years back, it would be very standard practice to see static stretches with 4 to 11-year-olds. Now, personally, I don't think this needs to be done. You never see 4 to 11-year-olds pulling their muscle or getting a strain in a PE lesson. It's a waste of time, in my opinion, and I think that you can do much better things with that time, which will help the child develop and learn in today's lesson. However, dynamic stretches can be really useful, and the reason I say that is that it can be a really good way to get their body ready to learn. Now, when it comes to safety within your warm-up, you need to think about the PACE method. P stands for people. Are the people safe? Are they working in the right size groups? A is for area. Is area right size? Is it too big? Is it too small? C stands for clear. Is your session clear, really easy to understand to avoid confusion? And E is equipment. Are the children using safe equipment? Now, if you have got all of those, you then need to think about what sort of warm-up games are you going to be delivering. Old school style are your static and dynamic stretches. Standing in a big circle, pulling a static stretch is not really what we do anymore. A, static stretches can actually increase the chance of injury, and B, you never see children pulling a muscle in a primary school PE lesson. So let's try and use that time effectively to help them learn and develop new skills. For me, it's all about games and fun activities. So when we go through these activities today, you're going to see lots of game-based activities, and the reason for that is that they are fun, they're educational, and they're safe all at the same time. Now, obviously, this video is focused towards primary school age children, which is 4 to 11. So just within these warm-up games, you might have to adapt slightly, but you could also tailor some of these into secondary school or maybe even into nursery. So take the little bits that you like, adapt them, put little adaptations in, really makes it specific to your own group, and that's a really important thing. My first theme are tag games. And tag games are a really good way, especially if you've got space and you've got the right sort of surface. I avoid tag games if I can on concrete, because quite often when children are chasing, they can catch each other and then they fall over. Just be aware of that. So have them outside on the field or on an AstroTurf, that's absolutely perfect. And the first one is called Chaos Tag. The way Chaos Tag works is you've got lots of children moving around the area, and if one of our children, say this person is tagged by this person on the back, they have to sit down. Now, it has to be a tap, it can't be a slap or a hit, and if they both tap each other's back at the same time, rock, paper, scissors, and you're away. This person sat down. The only chance he has to get back up is if this person is running around and somebody comes and taps him on the back. So if he's been tagged on the back by her, this means that this child now has run over here and has to sit down, and this child, because he was tagged by him, this person is now allowed to get back up and join in the game. It's called Chaos Tag. If somebody taps me on the back, I need to sit down, but when that person gets tagged, I'm allowed to get back up. Sometimes throughout your game, you might need to do a reset for everybody. Everyone gets back up, and away you go. The second tag game is Fire and Ice. And the way this works is everybody is working in the area, but you're going to have maybe 10% as fire and 10% as ice. They are ice, these two. Now, if ice manages to tap somebody on the back here, they have to freeze. The only way they can be released is if a fire comes and taps them, and then they are released. These other participants in the game are not allowed to release other people, and fire and ice are not allowed to interact with each other. So ice can't freeze fire, and therefore you've constantly got movement throughout your session. And yeah, get them straight into it. Great little athletics warm up, get them running, get them thinking about dodging, awareness, all that sort of stuff. And if you can bring some teaching points into these games, fantastic. And finally, we've got splash tag. Splash tag works like this. One person or 2 or 3 people have a bib, and they are holding the bib. Now, if they throw the bib and it hits somebody else, if it hits that person, they are now up, and this person doesn't have to worry about the bib. However, if I throw the bib at somebody and I don't hit them, I have to go and pick it up and keep playing. Like I say, you can do this with 1 or 2, you can do it with 10 bibs. What you sometimes find, if you've only got 1 or 2 bibs, is that everyone actually wants to be the tagger, so they deliberately sort of stand near the tagger to try and get, so it's their turn up. Whereas if you've got lots of tags, you'll probably prevent that from happening. So, or you can reward every 30 seconds, you freeze, and everybody that isn't holding a tag gets a point. And then it gives them a motivation to make sure they're not actually up, so they try a bit harder. But yeah, that works really nicely. There's 3 different tag games there, which I think work really nicely, very effective, and hopefully great little start straight into your session. The next theme is relay races. And how do you use relay races effectively in a warm-up? Well, you need to get every child moving. So we need to be conscious not to have big, long lines of children waiting to have a turn. So if I had a class of 30, I would have 15 groups, and there'd be groups of 2 in each of them. So imagine I've got a big circle and I've got 15 pairs on the outside. In the inside, I might have 30 different cones or bibs or tennis balls, basketballs, whatever it is. And they take turns, they run in, they pick up a basketball, and they've got to dribble it back. And then the next person can go, and they go. So it's a nice little way to use relay games as a warm-up, but without them becoming really boring and drill-like by having big, long lines. We've got to avoid the big, long lines because it's just, it's not an engaging way to get children ready into your lesson. But yeah, great little activity, relay race there. And you can even then develop this into a game called Robin Hood, which is when, once you've got all the tennis balls or basketballs in, you're allowed to go and steal a ball from somebody else's group and bring it back to your group. However, you're not allowed to block somebody trying to get your basketball. So these guys might they might run over here, pick up some basketballs or 1 basketball, bring it back, and then but obviously whilst that's going on, somebody else has probably stolen their basketball. So it gets quite chaotic, but it is fun. And again, if you're focusing on that dribbling technique, it just gets them lots of experience and time on the ball, actually dribbling the ball, which is important in your warm-up. Now the next one is slightly different, and it's called a pop relay. And I call it a pop relay because they're working as a 4, but you've also got another 4 working there, another 4 working there, and so on. And I call it a pop relay because it comes from tag rugby, where you pop the ball off. So you're gonna run forwards with the rugby ball, and you're gonna pop the ball, just a little pop pass to this person who's already run up, and is then going to collect the ball, and they're going to run this way and do a little pop pass to this person, who then continues. And you just follow it around, and once the children understand it nicely, especially for the older age groups I'll be working with this on, it gets a nice sort of momentum to the session. You can start working on different types of passes. And yes, this works for rugby, but you can do it with basketball, you can do it with tennis, with a tennis racket and a ball, you pass it over. There's lots of adaptations you can make to this, but it's just a different way of doing a relay. And my final type of relay is called chaos relay. And I call it chaos relay because you're going to have everybody just sort of chaotically around the area, and half of the group is going to have half the group's going to have a ball. So let's say these guys have got a ball, and all it is when you have a ball, you're trying to find somebody else to pass your ball onto. And so if this person, for example, they might pass the ball over here, and then they obviously now haven't got a ball. So they might travel over to this person, and then that person passes that ball there. As soon as you release the ball, you're going to go and try and find another ball, And then once you've got a ball to yourself, you need to try and find someone to pass it to. And you really try and encourage, get a ball, pass it on, get a ball, pass it on. Again, loads of different sports you can do this with. And you've just got to create that chaotic environment, but also you need to make sure the social side of it is really good, because what might happen is this person is friends with this person, but what if that person asked for the ball first? They asked first, so he should have passed it to her. So it doesn't matter who, whether you're best friends or whatever, you have to pass the ball to the person who calls your name first. That's the sort of social side to this relay game. So my next theme is all around competitive warm-up games. And my first one is piggy in the middle. So I've got here, group of 3. I always work to 3 if I can. To start with, we'll say that this person is going to be in the middle. So they're going to come in and obviously try and defend. And we're going to be looking at some movement off of the ball. This person is allowed to move, and then we can try and play the pass in there. It might be that you're going to allow the person who has the ball can also travel around. You might have certain boxes just for individual groups, or it could be working across the whole group and everybody is just playing piggy in the middle across each other's space. And that works just as well. It just focuses on just your awareness as well. As long as it's the space is big enough, that works quite nicely. I'd also look at 1 versus 1s. In little pairs across the group, I can have a 1v1, this person's got a ball and you've got to look after the ball. I'm going to stop my stopwatch in 45 seconds and the person that has the ball gets a point. And in this one, this could be football, for example, or hockey. If I'm playing this with hockey, you're teaching about how you're going to defend it, where you've got to keep your back to the defender, you're going to try and use the space. You get your technical details across straight away in your warm-up. My next theme is around inside warm-ups. And these are some warm-ups that you can play in smaller spaces in a small primary school hall for maybe a gymnastics or dance lesson or anything else that you're doing inside. My first one is follow the leader. Now, expect managing the pace. Of course, you don't want them sprinting around inside, but you've got in pairs or threes, one person's moving around and every movement that they make, this person has to make as well. So if they do a star jump, that person has to do a star jump. If they suddenly do a big loop like that, this person also has to do a big loop like that. And yeah, you're just going to try and get children exploring different ways to move their body, different shapes. And if I see some really creative stuff, I'm probably going to stop the whole group and say, right, let's watch little Jimmy as he's doing a fantastic sort of move, and they will watch it. And then what you'll find is once they've seen that creative move and he's got praise for it, they are then going to try and create some more creative moves so that they get to show the class. It's a really good way to get children moving straight away in your PE lesson, especially if you're inside. The second one is teacher says, and all you're going to play with this one is, for me, I'd say Charlie says, do a star jump. Charlie says, lie on the floor. And if you get anybody out, just give them like 5 lives. And that way, if they're out, they're not completely out. They just get reminded that they did the wrong thing. You want to keep them moving. You don't want anybody sat out in your PE lesson. Simon Says sort of game works really nicely. Just quick warm up just to get children moving straight away. The animal game. In the animal game, again, you've just got everyone moving around, and it works really nicely for the younger groups, but you can get the older groups in it as well, but it needs a bit more enthusiasm from you as a coach or a teacher. And all you're going to do is you're going to call out an animal, say tiger, and they're moving around the hall like a tiger, and then they're a monkey and they're going to be moving around like a monkey, and you just get lots of energy into your session, makes it really fun. And what I would do is, again, I might say, right, you've got 4 different animals to choose from, be creative, and then you'll find out these 2 are being a giraffe, these 2 are being an elephant, these 2 are being a monkey, and they all travel around different ways, and you can stop and you can be like, oh, what animal are they choosing? What are they doing well? How does that make them a good elephant, for example? And then in your warm-up, especially if you're doing dance, they're then starting to use descriptive words. Oh yeah, well they are, they've got their arms out in front of them, they're got a good facial expression like an elephant or whatever it is, and you can try and bring those main topics into your warm-up. Okay, and that's a really important thing with all your warm-ups, is you're not just doing it to get them moving, you're trying to bring in the skill for today's lesson. Now, before we wrap up the video, I just wanted to give you some tips for warm-ups, because I know it isn't easy. They just got changed, you haven't had any time to get anything ready. So my Big tip to you is your warm-up is a great time to start getting ready for that main session, but you have to use the right sort of warm-up. Use a warm-up which doesn't need that much equipment, that you can explain really quickly and get them moving straight away. Because what you don't want is them coming in, you're asking them to sit down for 2 or 3 minutes whilst you're setting up, and in that time they're getting restless, they're getting wiggly, and you need to try and think about, right, well, what PE warm-ups can I do that get my children moving straight away, that are safe, and then sort of around what you're teaching, you might even be able to start setting up your main session or your pitches for later in the lesson. It isn't easy, but I would definitely recommend that. Now, what you've got to remember with all of these are that these are the first 5 minutes in every PE lesson. So if you want all of your children engaged and having fun throughout your whole lesson, your first 5 minutes are really important. So do everything you can to make it fun, safe and educational. Adapt what I've given you today so that you can go away and create some of your own ideas. And I think young people need to be having a really positive experience. And some of the points we've gone through today, avoid the drills, limit intervention times, make it fun, small groups, all these sort of tips I want you to take away and take into your PE lesson. They are a culmination of all these little tips that we've got that make us good educators. We need to bring them into the PE lesson. We need to make sure it's fun, and we need to make sure children are enjoying sport at this young age, because if they don't enjoy it now, they're going to struggle to enjoy it when they're older as well. Now, if you have enjoyed today's video, please do comment and subscribe, but also I've got loads of other videos, and I'm going to put one video here that I reckon you're going to enjoy if you've enjoyed today's video. So please do check them out, and I'll see you in the next video.